So welcome to another episode of Epigram. Today we are with Vaki Mawema. We're back in DC. So Vaki, welcome. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.
As you can see, his shirt and this stuff here. This is Ron del Barrilito. This is one of the best rums in Puerto Rico, and he's a good fan of it. And I didn't show him first. He already figured out himself before I knew him. So Vaki and I, we come back from a long way now, almost 10 years since I started here in DC, working at Gensler. Mm-hmm. I met you, especially through this, and then we'd work.
That's true. That's right. It's been a while. Yeah. It's been a long time.
This has been a while, and how's it going? All good?
Yeah, everything's great. Thank you. Yeah, awesome. It's I can't complain. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So to start, like I tell everybody, like your formation is architecture, and your family is from Zimbabwe, and I don't know. Just go ahead and tell a little bit. Earlier you told me that you were born in New York. I didn't know that. I thought you were born in Zimbabwe. So,
yeah.
So we're born here, and then like your parents, like
Yeah, no, I was so I was born in New York. My parents were living in New York at the time. My dad had been a student and then gone on to teach in university at Columbia University in New York, and so that's kind of how we were in New York. But prior to that, my family had been living in the States for about 10 years or so.
Okay.
And so when Zimbabwe became independent in 1980, my family decided to start making plans to move back to Zimbabwe. And so we moved back to Zimbabwe in 1981. So from 1981 until the time I came back to the States, I was in Zimbabwe.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So awesome. So then your desires to go involved in a design career was like how that started, like.
Well, it's interesting.
You were one of those good guys drawing. Well, I know that you drew pretty well.
Yeah.
I saw your sketches and stuff.
Yeah, I enjoyed drawing. I've always liked drawing, and I used to draw just for recreation and for fun. Not anything too serious. But actually, I never thought about what I wanted to do very seriously as an adult until I was much older, as a teenager. Okay. And so my first love, or my first thought, was I wanted to go into politics.
Oh wow!
Because I'm actually from a very political family.
Okay.
And so the influences of politics were always around growing up. But my dad, having been in politics, thought that was a terrible idea.
Okay.
And so that was the first time that I started to think of something else. And then I remember one day I was walking in the school library, and I came across this book of Lloyd Wright sketches.
Oh, okay.
And I never, the whole book was these gorgeous, incredible hand sketches. And I'd never seen any sketches of buildings that thoroughly documented, examinations into details and views and, versions of the same drawing and that sort of thing. Real studies, I'd never seen that before.
Okay.
And so I asked the librarian, I said, what is this? And she says, oh, this is an architect. This is the work of an architect, Lloyd Wright. He's one of the most famous architects in the world. And I thought to myself, wow, I like to draw. I probably can't draw quite that well, but I would love to be able to do that. And so at that moment, I decided I think I'll go into architecture school.
That's awesome.
And so that was really how I started to conceptualize my life as in the design industry. Prior to that, I had thought of other things, like I say.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
And something to add, another passion that I know you have, because I met you through that when I started Gensler, you had your own band, the Honeycombs, right?
The Honeyguns.
The Honeyguns.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had your own group with your name.
Yeah.
And I knew that you really had a love for a very big passion for that.
Yeah.
And we all that had the opportunity to see you performing, we saw that. You even performed at the office a few times, so that was funny. And,
I haven't done it since. I did it once and I haven't done it since.
Yeah, and that's something that came together kind of the same time, that time that you were growing and getting involved in the architectural world. you know, like being a rock star, that's kind of like goes along with growing up as a teenager, sometimes as a growing up in college or stuff like that. So I don't know if like that those things were building together, kind of simultaneously, or music came first in terms of like playing it, or what happened there. I don't know.
That's a great question, Hector. And I think if I'm completely honest, I never even thought, not once, that I would be a musician.
Oh, really?
I've always loved music as much as I've loved many things, and I do love many things. And I'm always exploring, trying new things. And one day we were living in San Diego at the time, and we were out at a friend's house over Thanksgiving. And so I think at that house, he had a tradition, you know, the guitar would come out after a while, and people would start to play or sing, and he would play and people would sing. And so he started to play, and as he played, he was singing. I don't recall the song, but I started to harmonize. But I think at that moment he was struck by the harmony, and he thought, "Wow, you've got some talent, or some. Have you ever performed before?" And I said, "No, but I'm singing with you." And so he said, "Why don't we get together next week and have some drinks and play some music?" And I said, "That sounds great." So I went over to his house the next Sunday, and by the time I left his house that day, I formed my first band with him. And
that's awesome.
It was called the Milton Park Band.
That's great.
And so we found some other friends and filled up the lineup. And then within a few weeks, we were playing shows. Okay. So that was my entry into music. It was serendipitous and completely unplanned. And then I really started to, once I was in that world, I started to really think about it and immerse myself. And then I became a student of it.
Okay.
And then I started to express myself and creatively. Prior to that, it was just, we were singing cover songs and that sort of thing. But then I thought I could write music. And so I tried writing music, and I had some success. And now we were playing original music, and then we were playing bigger shows and better shows and trying new sounds and all of that. And then moved to DC and, formed the Honey Guns with some close friends and did more of that. And then before you know it, we were actually playing, like you say, like we felt like we were a real legitimate rock band.
Yeah, it sounded like that.
Yeah, and
you even do recordings and everything.
We were having a lot of fun. It was incredible. And that was an incredible moment for me in my life.
Yeah. And I think that was part of you, like being always that extroverted. Like, for example, I remember at Gensler, maybe other people can relate that too. You're a person that quickly stays in the memory of somebody that just met you. It's not like somebody meet you and forgot about you. There's something about you, like when you walk around, they introduce you to everybody, you take your time and, ask some questions and be a little bit more, tune with the person a little bit more closely than maybe other people. And you kind of like, people just feel more comfortable, like being like your friend, and ask you a question. There's a comfort behind talking to you, maybe to other people that seem a little bit more, I don't know if I will bother that person. You don't feel that with you.
Well,
I don't know if is that like something that was always with you, and then when you start performing, you even like embrace it somehow. I don't know.
I don't know where that comes from specifically, Hector, and I thank you. It's very kind. I think I take a lot of those personality traits from my parents.
Okay.
My mother's very introverted, and there is actually a very private side to my character that most people don't get to see because it's private.
Yeah.
But the parts that are not private, I think I take from my father, who, like I say, being a politician, those things were sort of ingrained in him and maybe came more natural to him. And so my interests are not that divergent from my father's. Some of my interests, I should say, including, I love the arts. I love the dramatic arts, performance arts.
Okay.
And so I did public speaking in school and debate and I think it really comes down to, Hector, it comes down to sort of a desire that I have. It feels like it's omnipresent to want to connect.
Okay.
And so whether it's in the spoken case, as you've described, or it's musically, or it's creatively, or through art, or through architecture, whether I'm conscious of it or not, when I look back, I see a trend of a desire to want to make connection and to become more familiar with either people or whomever the other individual is. And I think that comes naturally to me because that's just who I am. But if the result of that is that people feel comfortable, then that's great. I'm happy to hear that.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just going with that. What I'm trying to get is like a lot of the people maybe they might hear us through this. They're not architects. They're not in a design world or anything like that. But there's something unique about you, and I have seen your success through years at the company, your work at Gensler, and a lot of things that I saw that was unique from you was the way you express the work to the public. So the way you show or showcase a project that my other person design, but in the way you explain it and I don't know, organize it depending on the crowd you have, you do it pretty well. And I think in part that helps you also in, like channel your career somehow, because in a corporation like that one, like it's a corporation of so many people. So like it's still the biggest company in the world of architecture, right? Mm-hmm. So you need to somehow guide people to do something, and or organize people. And if you don't have a source of a person that maybe through their words doesn't engage other people, you could be the best designer in the world, but you need to work in a group. Yeah. You need to connect people together. And if you don't do that, it doesn't become the success doesn't get involved, Correct. And I saw that a lot of when I was working there. There was plenty of good designers, and some of them, they had a hard time communicating an idea, and somehow you do that pretty well. And I think that's like, and I see that how that can maybe help you grow in your career, Well,
thank you. It's very kind again. I just, I feel and I believe that I don't feel like I'm that unique. There's many people who are like me in any number of ways. One of those ways I believe is we all sort of have a desire to want to be understood and to be together, not to be alone. And so when I'm talking about our work, our design work, again, I'm trying to appeal to the desire that I feel we all have to have meaning in what we do. Okay. We want our work to be meaningful. And whether or not it's apparent in the drawing or in the actual design, I think it's important to try and investigate and to find the opportunity for that meaning to become expressed. And when it's expressed, we give ourselves an opportunity to engage that meaning, and it becomes meaningful to us. And so that's a fundamental sort of thing with me when it comes to communication, especially of our work. And I find that when I'm able to do that successfully, the project takes on a little bit more importance, not just to me because I'm talking about it, but to the individual who is agreeing or who's collaborating with me. And then we're able to move things forward. Okay. Architecture and the arts in general can have a tendency, especially when being explained or described by their author or creator, to feel very self-serving, very personal in their expression, which is true. But I think when you birth design and architecture into the world, it's a gift to the world. It's a gift that you're putting out there. It's like a child. It's like a creation. It's there for everybody to enjoy or partake in. So we have to go further. We have to put that out there and then actually work to give it meaning to people so that people can appreciate it. It doesn't mean they have to like it, but they have to understand it and they have to appreciate it. Okay. But more often than not, because we're all human and we all share similar traits, we can find similar things to latch onto in work. And that's one of the things, to me, as an individual, I utilize as a either you call it a technique or a skill set or whatever, to move things forward. Okay. Yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. It makes sense. Like I'm just trying to find a way, like when we do these kinds of conversations, it's like try to, if somebody hears this and find like what are there's maybe a lot of students from Puerto Rico that might hear this because of the last interview I had, and might tell like what is the key to go to a corporation like Gensler, because a lot of that people desires to go to places like that one, and the companies we work and etc. And I know that you started like in the basics. You started like kind of not a junior, but almost a junior designer, right?
That's
and
great.
you started like patiently scaling up.
Yeah.
You know, like starting to understand how everything works.
Yeah.
And find your way to make everything, you know, like put the challenge on the way and find the channel how to grow up in the company.
Yeah.
And when I was working there, I saw you growing up.
Yeah.
And somehow like you started dressing differently, you started acting differently, you started like getting more mature in the years.
Getting old.
After taking each position, you know, like you're becoming associate, senior associate, now directing the studio.
Yeah.
Now move to another office and maybe soon a principal, right? You're not a principal yet.
Not yet.
Maybe soon, you know.
Who knows?
but you know, like somehow like when you're in a company, you always look at people that you can visualize yourself and say like, that could be me.
Mm-hmm.
That guy came from the bottom and weighed himself up.
Yeah.
He didn't have a family member over there that helped, or he went to the same school as the principal, whatever. You know, it was, you know, you kind of like find a way, you know, and I found that interesting, you know, to know that kind of stuff. Going with that, I don't know what is the question that I might ask you later.
No, it's interesting. I think the question that you did put out there, or you sort of alluded to it, is what might somebody who's never been in an environment, a corporate environment like Gensler, which is a very large corporate environment, what would you need to do to be successful? And there's no straightforward answer to that. There's any number of things somebody could do, but I think, again, you know, in business and in life, a huge part of your success is your ability to make connections. And I don't mean that in the superficial way and talking about business relationships per se. I'm talking about human connections. Getting to know people, because when you get to know people, you give yourselves an opportunity to build trust. Mm-hmm. And trust in business is everything, right? I think there's a prerequisite, which is excellent work. We all have to be excellent practitioners. You simply cannot thrive in a high-performing environment if you're not excellent. Yeah. So excellence is just a standard. That's, you know, the technical excellence. But I think as an individual, getting to know people, getting to build professional relationships that are built on, you know, on trust, that's the key. That's the key. So that's been my experience, again, is trying to get to put myself in positions where I can get to know somebody who can teach me something, or who I can learn from, or who I can be connected to or connect somebody to. And that, combined with the delivery of the work, usually ends up in a good place, because people think, wow, this has been a great process. We've had a lot of fun. I've gotten to know these individuals or that person, and we've created some great work. And of course, there's other parts and components to the whole process, but that's to me one of the most important things about being in business. I think that's separate from being a great architect or great designer per se. We can talk about that separately, I guess, or together, but I just wanted to directly respond to how do you thrive in a corporate environment. And I think it goes beyond Gensler. It's any bureaucracy, any corporate environment. Those are some of the things that one needs to excel at.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, Vaki, that's interesting. So adding to that, I find something unique. I came from a school that, and maybe you relate to that too, that it was involved the majority of architects and good designers, that there's a special passion behind the art of a good design, etc. But then coming to the real world, from a little island that I came from, coming to this big corporation, I started thinking and looking at the size of the business and dealing with different kind of people. And sometimes, you know, like the business became, you know, level in terms of how you express or sell something, or where do we need to make a channel to make something efficient and profitable to the corporation. Like the mindsetting starts tweaking a little bit. I don't know if you want to add something related to that.
Well, I happen to think, I mean, that's been my experience as well. I came from a school, and in my early days as a professional, from a highly creative, craft-focused background. You know, the design was everything. But I find that as I grow, as I change, as I mature, as you say, that's not everything for me. Like I say, architecture is a big part of my life. Design is a big part of my life. But there are other things that are also a big part of my life. Music is a big part of it. My family, huge. I have other tastes and interests. And I don't put architecture, for me, I don't put architecture above any one of those interests. I think they're all part of who I am. And so I just feel like my real passion at the end of the day is people. I think I'm passionate mostly about engaging with people. And if we can do it through design, and you can move people, and you can create great spaces and great environments, or you can improve a condition, I love that. If you can do it in any other form of business or art, I love that too, because it's moving us forward. It's moving us as a society forward. That's what I care about. Okay. You know, I had a turning point in my life. I think you asked me a question about this earlier, but it wasn't specific to what I'm about to say. I had a turning point in my life when I read a book, a simple book, The Alchemist, by Paulo Coelho. And I must have read it at an impressionable time for me or something, but there's so many parts of that very simple read that resonated with me. But the general gist of it was that there's this desire out there to make our world better. We all want to make our world and our environment better every day, not worse, better. And you can't make the world better per se. You can only make yourself better. Whether you decide you want to drink less and exercise more, or you want to be a little bit kinder to people around you, or you want to work a little bit harder in your design so you can be a little bit better practitioner. And the gist is basically, if everybody were to do that every day, in whatever your space is, try and get better, then the whole world is getting better. Okay. And as the world gets better, you realize this new reality. And so for me, I thought to myself, wow, I need to start trying really hard to just be a better version of myself in my own way. That's when I really started to apply myself at work. Okay. I chose that route. For one, I chose on the private side. You know, I decided I want to make music. I want to really work hard and try and do it because I can, and I have the time and I have the energy. Personally, the same way. So that's what I care about. And whether it's, you know, like some of the other guests you've had, incredible talents, incredible people who are doing incredible things. I could never do those things, but I appreciate and I love it because it's positive. Okay. That's my philosophy on life. That's my philosophy in business.
Okay. I go with that. Like, that's a great advice. I think something about going to the beginning of what you were talking about, people, like the key of your as a driver, you know? Yeah. And I want to like put it in a little bit more fun way. Yeah. Flirting with people.
Flirting
with people. Like, somehow I feel like one of the big challenges, I remember like talking about, I'm dealing with this client, it's so hard to get him. I really don't get him. I don't know what he really wants. Yeah. Like, every time that I go to this meeting, it's a surprise. Yeah. And I don't know if you can tell a quite unique, and maybe we close it with that, an experience you had with a specific client that we know we all had, that we like, fuck, there's no way to find him. Like, what is the right answer to deliver what he wants? Because sometimes I feel those clients are even more important, because the easy client is an easy client. Yeah. You know? But it feels very comfortable when you have a very challenging client and project, and you somehow nailed it at the end. You know, like, you fight your way. I'm like, fuck, I got this guy. You know, it was so hard. Like, you know, sometimes it's like flirting. Yeah. Maybe you find a girl one day that she seems to be not interested. She had like a weird attitude.
I've had a lot of those experiences.
Yeah. We all had all those stuff. But somehow, like, if you find a way to make that girl smile, like, oh yeah, I made it, you know, and somehow I feel like you're a good flirter in the office environment, you know, like, not about girls, talking about like fishing and finding the right answer for that client that sometimes we feel is very difficult to understand.
Yeah, I mean, clients, a story doesn't jump to mind about a business client per se, but I can think of many individual circumstances in business where I'm struggling to break through with somebody about something.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that a lot of times, again, it's because you don't know each other well enough.
Okay.
And I feel like if you actually put enough effort, you can find something where you can click, and that might be all it takes. There was a guy we used to work with, actually, him and I have completely divergent political views, right?
Okay.
And so this was in the middle of the Obama-Clinton, Romney election. And he was so for the one side and I was for the other side. And we were completely convinced our side was going to prevail. But I remember we struggled so much to just get along at work. We couldn't agree on the process for moving a project forward.
Okay.
But we were always engaging each other on politics. But I found there was a mutual respect there.
Okay.
We were confronting each other professionally, but we were totally collegial, talking about other things.
Okay.
Eventually, that became our bridge
Okay.
to working together really well. So all I'm trying to say is that I think there's always an opportunity for us, if we explore other avenues, to find some common ground. And I think that would be the case on a project basis as well, though I've never had a project quite that challenging, to where I've had to really work that hard to then eventually say, okay, we've made some success. I find, you're working with a team, you're never alone anyway. So somebody on the team might have a great relationship and you're able to leverage that. Somebody can move to the front of that relationship and be the face of the project if you as an individual are not working out. So there's so many tools at your disposal, so many weapons to make a relationship work in business. But you have to create that environment, that team environment, so people feel like they can actually step up and do it.
That's great.
Yeah.
And to close, I want to say something like, there's any honeycombs coming event, any guns coming back, or any band in the future?
Well, you can never say never. We haven't made music in a few years now. It's
Okay.
unfortunate, but I've written some music, and my bandmates have written some music. Actually, one of them just got married a couple of months ago, and it was great to be back there, the live band there and everything, and we had some fun. But as a band, there's nothing yet in the works.
Okay.
But you never know.
That's awesome.
It can still happen.
Well, Vaki, thank you for coming. And I want to see if this run for you resonate, and we can find you a shirt for that one. It's a good one too. And
I love the barrilito, man. This better be really good stuff, because this is.
And let's see if we have you as a regular too, and we can invite you next time, and maybe next time is in Puerto Rico.
Even better.
Yeah.
Even better.
Thank you, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, cool. So, okay, let's talk about DC.
Okay.
Another thing that I always like to engage is where we are.
Yeah.
We're already in a unique place. Yeah, a lot talking about politicians and stuff, but also the city have changed quite specific related to politics, and I think every day it becomes more social engaged,
Yeah.
more art involved.
Yeah.
Like people are opening up instead of being that formal. You even feel like you see things loosening up.
Like you, guys like you. That's what's happening. This city is gaining people like you.
Yeah. You stop using the bow tie and start wearing weird hats like this.
Yeah, I don't know. I've been in this city now. I live in this city 10 years, and I've seen it change quite dramatically in those 10 years. One of the things that I've loved, there's always been a good arts scene, but high arts, the Kennedy Center type stuff. And then you've got the sort of music club scene at the Black Cat and, whatever else is going on in some of these other clubs. I loved all that. But what I've really enjoyed is seeing the food culture come through.
That's true.
I've really enjoyed that. I still think DC kind of suffers from this pretentiousness that's maybe because there's social pressure because it's a transient town. People come from someplace else. They show up and they're trying to fit in, or who knows what the reasons are. Probably got too much money where they came from. I don't know. But I love the idea that DC has become a hub for the finer things, as it were, food being one of them. Music, I think, still needs a little bit of help. There is some good music in this town, but we need some help. But I think people like you, and I love your show, by the way. I think you're doing a great job, exploring people and environments that are actually interesting. For a change, it's great. So it's nice to see that. And I know. So good job to you guys for helping push the city forward that way. Because I hope everybody gets to watch these shows, these episodes. There's a lot to learn.
Are you sure about that? You want everybody to see you?
Not this particular one, but, but maybe some other ones.
That's
anyway,
cool.
So it's been nice to see that. You know, my wife is from California, and we came to DC because it looked a certain way. There was you feel so much pride being in DC. That was the first thing I can remember, first emotion I can remember about arriving here. The monuments and Capitol and Barack Obama. It felt so good being here, and it does. But I think after a while, it's felt like it kind of reverts back into this business as usual kind of, and the business as usual is not enjoyable. It's not great.
Okay.
It's not exciting. It's not energizing. It's not uplifting. It's getting better, but it's not there yet. But it's nice to see it changing.
And that's the reason why you decided to move.
No. I've enjoyed DC, and I don't want to sound like I'm poo-pooing DC.
No.
Because I really have enjoyed it. But being in Baltimore, first of all, I love change. I love the newness of things. 10 years of one's life in any one place is a long time. So I feel like I've done my part.
That's right.
And now I'm ready to go to a new environment and meet new people and new energy, new flavors. And Baltimore is incredible that way so far.
And you're close enough.
We're close enough. I'm only barely a half an hour away. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So yeah, Vaki, what else? Your why is so important for you the rum?
Yeah. Okay. Good. That's a great question. That's actually a really great question.
For us, it's so important. Yeah.
You know what? And I have to be honest here. For the last few years, I've had this infatuation with Latin American culture.
Oh, really? There you go.
One of my best friends is from Puerto Rico. My other best friend is right here.
Yeah.
Also from Puerto Rico. Some of my other best friends are from Costa Rica.
Okay.
And I don't think that's by coincidence. I think that's what, I've just been exposed to that world, and I've met some great Argentinians, right?
Yeah.
And so the culture, the food, the language, the drink, all of that has been something that I've just been immersing myself in, trying to, whenever I can get the opportunity. I just love it. I think it's something that's a pleasure that I share with my wife too. We both really have had a great experience in the Spanish-speaking community, not just here in the States, but also internationally. So I don't know. So when I went down there, and my friend Leo, he said you have to try the best rum in
We just
in
finished
PR.
this bottle now. So whatever we are talking about is because
Probably just I'm talking shit right now because we drank the whole bottle. But I gave him $40 and he came out with 2 bottles of Barrilito in
Oh, really?
in San Juan, and we walked down to Condado Beach, and those bottles were gone so fast.
Yeah.
That's one of my lasting memories of
Great.
being down there. So
That's awesome, man.
yeah.
So yeah, so I'm closing again. If you want to add something else,
No.
but I think this was good as a bonus track. Sorry, it's Juli is in the background telling me to not touch your beer, but I cannot like. So thank you again, man.
Thank you, brother.
See you
Appreciate
later.
it.
Okay, bye.